we're back. So we are now going to continue with the previous discussion on research, and I have been getting questions regarding how to write the statement of the problem. So in relation to this, let me just go back and review the previous discussions that we had before, that there are different types of researches. So in line with this, the statement of the problem would follow the type of research that you are doing. So for example, you are doing a correlation research wherein you are trying to look for the correlation of two variables, then your statement of the problem would also follow that type of research. And then another type of research, which is experimental research, wherein you're going to try and test strategy on a particular group or class. Therefore, the statement of the problem again would vary and would be different from the correlation type research. So this is what we are going to achieve and try to achieve in this video. So let's start. So we're back, and before we go on to the main topic, which is the writing of the statement of the problem, let us establish the relationship and the role of the SOP or statement of the problem with your research. So I pulled out my old research. This is the dissertation that I proposed when I was taking up my doctorate degree, and then I'll try to show you what I am discussing as we go on. We were trying to establish the role and the relationship of the SOP with your research. So what is the role of the statement of the problem in your research? So the statement of the problem basically sets the specific direction where your research is supposed to go. So it's a compass and a means of establishing whether you were able to accomplish the output or the outcome of your research at the end of the research. And then it also makes sure that you're on the right track, meaning you are not putting anything that is not included in the actual research. So statement of the problem states what you want to accomplish in your research. That's one. The second is the relationship of the SOP with your research. So aside from the role that I have already told you, majority of the questions by the students is how do you start writing the SOP? So in order to write the specific SOP in relation to your type of research is that you should know that these two, the research title, the research that you are doing, and the SOP are directly intertwined with each other. You cannot just write any statement of the problem out of the blue based on what you want to write. So everything that you are going to put into your SOP should be directly related to the achievement of your title. Okay, so with this in mind, whether you're doing correlation research, you're doing experimental research, you're doing descriptive research, it would all follow and fall down on this basic concept, wherein the SOP, the statement of the problems, the questions in the statement of the problems would try to reinforce your research, would try to support in order for it to make a reality. So Basically, that's how we try to simplify the role and relationship of the statement of the problem with the research title. So, I'll try to cite one or two examples for the statement of the problem or the writing of the statement of the problem. So I'll start with what I have right now, which again I told you earlier was my proposed dissertation during my doctorate degree. Okay, so I hope you can see the title. This is a proposed supplementary instructional material in computer fundamentals. So during this time I was teaching computer subjects, and I saw problems in relation to the teaching and learning computers. So I created a research wherein I would be able to come up or come out with a supplementary material that can be used in the teaching of computer fundamentals. So basically that's what my title is trying to tell the reader of the research. So if that is stated in the general form, in this research, in page 6, I'll try to show you first. So this is how I wrote the statement of the problem. So I'll just show you first so you can browse on it, and then we're going to discuss it one by one. So I was able to show and write for SOP. So if we are going to go back to our earlier discussion, we have established that your SOP should be relevant with your research title. So number one, if you remember what I showed you, the study aimed at developing an instructional material in computer fundamentals. So this one is the general problem. So you have a general statement on top, this one. Okay, let's focus on that. And then below that, specifically on this part, you are going to try to accomplish the following. So again, this is the general problem, the general statement of the problem, and these are the specific problems. So the general problem, if you observe, is just the question form of the title. So if you're going to go back to your title, this one was just transformed into question form. So actually it's a statement. Okay, the question form is the specific problems. So the statement of the problem is that it states that this research will develop an instructional material in computer fundamentals. Basically, the following specifically would be accomplished in this research. So what are these? Number one, you try to establish the existing status of your research problem or your research environment. So in relation to this, SOP number one, what existing instructional materials in computer fundamentals were utilized by the respondent? Since I am developing an instructional material, SOP number one tried to establish if there were actual supplementary materials or supplemental materials being used in computer fundamentals. So the second one, what difficulties were met by the instructions in the aforementioned course? So it tried to identify and establish the difficulties in learning the subject, which is computer fundamentals. And number three, what was the content of the proposed supplementary instructional materials in computer fundamentals? So if they have an existing supplementary instructional materials, what were the contents? So it can also be evaluated at the end of the research. And then the fourth one and the last one is, how did the instructors assess the proposed supplementary instructional materials as to specifically content, organization, and suitability of the activities in the proposed instructional material. The purpose of establishing number 3, which is the existing supplementary materials, is that so we can compare and contrast. You compare what they are using, and then we compare it with what we are proposing. So with these 4 questions, we have already covered the area needed in order to propose an instructional material in computer fundamentals. So it's as basic as that. And then I think with these, you can follow the pattern in asking specific questions in your respective researches. Okay, so we'll try to cite another example later on in this video. After discussing the sample research, which is a proposed supplementary instructional material in computer fundamental, another type of research that is commonly being proposed today, based on my experience in the graduate school, is the experimental research. But with experimental research, there are various types of research that you can use. Actually, there are 2 that I know of that is being used in the graduate school, which is the full experimental and the quasi-experimental. And with these, we have to set a separate video for the formation of the SOP in the experimental research. So it is not that complicated, but if you have already have a feel on the sequence, the pattern, the requirements of the SOP for experimental research, then it would come naturally for you in writing the statement of the problem. So we will be discussing this on a separate video, but basically what I have already discussed to you in the descriptive type of research proposing an instructional supplementary material is the idea in writing a statement of the problem. So you can already use that in writing your SOP for this type of research. So thank you and happy writing.